Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. On today's show, a former banker creates an underground world full of technological advances that could create powerful weapons and powerful foes. An ordained minister and truck driver talks about building a relationship with the Lord. A grandmother shares how to make your grandchildren the stars of your children's books. And a single dad says, yes, you can potty train your daughter. But first, how do migraine sufferers spell relief? Dr. Egilius Spierings says if you read his book, you'll find out. He spent 50 years immersed in the science of headache and face pain, the causes and treatments. His findings are in his book entitled Headaches, Why You Have Them and What You Can Do About Them. You've never published a book like this before, have you?
No, I have published maybe a dozen books or so, but all written for the medical professional. I have never ventured out to write a book for the patient or the lay audience in a broader sense. So this is the first one in that category that I've published, and it's also going to be the last one. I have no intentions of doing this again.
Why? Was it that bad?
No, it was pretty good, but I am myself 72 already, so I am to a great extent retired. And the book, what I wrote down in the book is really a lifetime experience treating and researching headache and face pain. And what I'm working on currently is to market the book and also to bring it out in a number of translations. The French translation is already out and available. I myself working on a Dutch translation. I'm working on it right now. A Polish translation is in the works. A Chinese Mandarin translation is in the works, as well as a Spanish translation.
That's great. So why did you write this book?
Because I don't think I got anywhere writing books and papers for the medical professionals. So I'm trying to do it bottom up, empowering the patients in the hope that that will ultimately generate more benefit for those patients. I think that headache and face pain are still greatly misunderstood. As a result of that, also not necessarily correctly diagnosed and certainly not effectively treated. While we have very good treatments available, I am myself also a pharmacologist, so I'm a neurologist with a specialty in headache and face pain, but I'm also a pharmacologist. And with that background, I've worked extensively on the development of medications, in particular migraine medications, because migraine is by far the biggest problem from a headache perspective. And over the last 30, 40 years, we have been able to develop great medications, and I see that although they're available, physicians tend not to know about them, and also patients do not tend to receive them, as a result of which there is a lot of unnecessary suffering.
I feel like migraines are still such a mystery.
They are, but not really. They shouldn't have to be a mystery, and that's also what I write about extensively in my book. I think there are also a lot of misconceptions about headache and face pain, including migraine. And as I said, we have very, very good treatments available. And I really would love to see those treatments being applied widely. And, it's not that they're new medications. For example, there's one class of medications called triptans. Those medications have been available since the early 90s. So it's not that they're new, they're out there, but for one reason or the other, physicians don't know about them, patients don't know about them, and if they know about them, very often physicians don't know how to properly prescribe them, as a result of which patients do not use them correctly and either get side effects from it or certainly do not get the benefit that you can get out of those medications. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I have worked in this field since the 1970s. So for a very long time, I got involved with headache when I was still a medical student, have done extensive research, basic research as well as clinical research, and have seen thousands of patients build up a lot of experience. And that's really what I've laid down in this book. So it's really, a very personal book. It's basically my knowledge, experience, um, treating headache and face pain patients.
So, this is to help out the, doctors and patients. And I would venture to say that if you have migraines, you're going to a specialist of some sort or another. Why is it that they are either unaware or unwilling to use some of the medications that seem to work?
Yes, and I think that is because physicians in general, or healthcare practitioners in general, don't tend to see the significance of somebody suffering from migraine headaches. That suffering is generally done in silence, you know. So it's not like they're walking around with a broken leg or something like this. People typically, in the midst of a migraine headache, want to be at home in a dark and quiet room, um, not really having to deal with anybody or anything. So these people tend to suffer in silence, and I think that really also contributes to the fact that when you don't have migraine, you don't tend to really look at this as a genuine source of suffering and disability. And I think that's the reason why it's not high on the list. For physicians, it's like hypertension, diabetes, and so on. These kind of conditions, and headache, migraine, face pain, very low on the list.
What causes migraines?
So first of all, migraine is a genetically determined and inherited condition. It runs in families. And so
Oh,
diagnose it doesn't really have to be an issue, because you could basically, looking around is generally not good, because of the fact that, as I said earlier, these people tend to suffer in isolation. They tend to go in hiding, a dark and quiet room. They don't want to be disturbed. But certainly talking to relatives is extremely important. It very often the mother has it. So you could just talk to your mother and see whether she has those headaches or used to have them in the past. It's generally worse for the offspring when the father has it. And men tend to generally be unaware of the fact that they have migraine. They think they have bad tension headaches or bad sinus headaches, or have a history of bad hangover headaches, but they're migraine headaches triggered by stress, tension, sinus issues, or alcohol. And so sometimes you have to kind of, find the right source of information. What in actual fact causes the pain of the migraine headache is a combination of widening of blood vessels in the head, and these blood vessels subsequently becoming inflamed. It's an inflammation that is different from what you see with a viral or bacterial infection. It's inflammation that's caused by the stimulation of the pain fibers that have to do with pain perception. When these fibers get stimulated, not only do they send signals to the brain that there is a source of pain, but they also start to secrete chemicals around the blood vessels. And one of those chemicals is CGRP, calcitonin gene-related peptide. And for example, we have two great classes of medications based on the involvement of CGRP in the development of migraine headache. One class of medications called CGRP antibodies that are used preventively for migraine, and the other are called GPANs, or small molecule CGRP receptor antagonists. I already mentioned the class called triptans.
right.
Treatment should really focus around these three classes of medications. So it's not even that complicated. It's not like we have dozens of classes of medications. We have triptans used abortively, of which we have 7 on the market. We have the GPANs, of which we have 4 on the market, also used abortively as well as preventively. And then we have the CGRP antibodies, which are also 4 on the market for migraine prevention. And especially these CGRP antibodies have been great in terms of the progress we've made. They're very well tolerated. They don't have side effects. And they give you easily 80, 90, sometimes 100% prevention of migraine headaches. It's really a major step ahead that we've made.
Well, I would think if you're out there talking about this, people that suffer with migraines would be clamoring to hear you speak.
I would assume so, but the issue is that, let's say with regard to my book, I have to make people aware of the existence of the book. There are a lot of publications out there about headache, and to a certain extent also about face pain. But I think most of them are relatively superficial and tend to kind of come with one particular type of treatment. It's like, you know, when you have a hammer, everything is a nail. So they either focus on diet or they focus on stress management. My book is really different in the sense that it's a medical book. It deals with medical issues related to migraine, especially those people who have migraine headaches frequently. We call that chronic migraine. They may have these headaches on a daily basis. They also tend to have a lot of other conditions: anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue, insomnia, musculoskeletal issues like chronic neck and back pain, fibromyalgia, gastrointestinal issues like reflux disease, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome. They may have restless legs syndrome. And I deal with all of those things in my book. So my book is really kind of a general medical treatise on headache and face pain. I did once a book signing with Miles for Migraines. Otherwise, I've had my book presented at international book fairs, half a dozen of them last year. At the moment, I'm focusing on getting my book into various languages translated so that it becomes readily available. I am active on Instagram, and also I have a website that where I collect all of the information, the press releases and the reviews that I get and so on.
So nice to meet you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. Egilius L.H. Spierings, author of Headaches, Why You Have Them, What You Can Do About Them. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
When Linda Allen's grandchildren were little, she used to write a children's story to tell them every weekend before they went to bed. And they were the main characters. The Fabulous Frankenfish is the name of the first story she's published. Linda, give us the background here.
Frankenfish came about, we had gone to a carnival, and they had each won a little goldfish in a little bowl. I don't know if they can do that anymore or not, but we brought them home. I put them in bigger bowls, and I put them side by side. And when they were still sleeping in the morning, I walked in the room, and here I saw one goldfish jump into the bowl of the other goldfish. And, they had a wonderful time. So I thought, that is my next story. So it was a spectacular fish. So,
how many books did you write all together?
I've got 4 more I need to publish. I've got 2 published now, Fun Times and Rhymes, and then this one, The Fabulous Frankenfish.
So how old are your grandchildren now?
They're 30. And the funny thing is, my grandson, they were twin boy and girl, Hunter and Haley. And Hunter was looking at the book I had written, and he said, Grandma, the name of the girl is Piper. They named their little girl Piper Rose.
Oh.
So they had to have that book.
Tell me the story of The Fabulous Frankenfish.
Okay, it was, there had been a big rainstorm and a lot of flooding going on around these people that lived out in the country. And the mom and the daughter decided to go for a walk and look over everything. And as they're walking, they come to this big puddle area, and they noticed something in there. When they looked down, they saw this beautiful little fish just swimming around in there. And so the little girl decided to run home and get a fish bowl, and they put the fish in there. And they were raising it, and all of a sudden it was sitting on a rounded table, and they noticed the fish, and it jumped right out of the bowl. So the little girl decided to go to the store and buy a bunch of bowls to go around that bowl so that it could jump, because that's all the fish wanted to do was leap and leap. So it would leap all around those bowls, just all the time. And pretty soon they noticed it had leaped out and fallen on the floor. So she went and got a whole bunch more bowls, and the fish jumped out of the bowls on the table and right down to the bowls on the floor. So they had some man sitting for the fish, because they knew they had to have somebody there because of its leaping thing. And so he was sitting there, and here he worked for a theater, and he noticed that fish just jumping and leaping, and it was getting bigger and bigger, and it was pretty spectacular. So he had an idea. And he told, when they got back from their little trip, he told them, be at the theater at 8 o'clock tonight. So, and they went to the theater, the drapes opened up, and there was Frank-a-Fish, and he was just bouncing around in these bowls. It was a big tower of bowls. And on the bottom was a regular rounded aquarium. And he just leaped and leaped and leaped. He was just, the crowd was going crazy. And then he ended up in the aquarium at the bottom, and it looked like he took a bow to the front of the aquarium when he was done. Oh, everybody really clapped, and they thought that was wonderful. They'd never seen anything like that before. So.
And that's how it ends?
And that's how it ends. He was a star in the theater. So it was a wonderful surprise to find this fish and not know really where it came from. With all the flooding, it must have come from some other creek or something and ended up in that puddle. And it ended up being a star.
Linda, do your books share a common theme?
No, it's all usually things that I experienced when I was a child growing up, I experienced with my children or my grandchildren. So they all have some truth to them, every one of them.
Even Frank-a-Fish?
Yeah. Well, there's the truth in that, I put those two bowls together and I walk in there and I see the one fish jump into the other bowl. So there was a little bit of truth to that. So,
Linda, I have never seen, I had goldfish as a little girl. I have never seen them jump out of, you must have been like, what?
Are you kidding? I found fish that I had in a bowl that jumped out and they were laying there dead, because they had jumped out, Yeah, they do like to leap. So it was a gold and blue fish. They'd never seen anything like this fish before. So it was just, it was something. Kids loved that. They loved the story. They thought it was fun. So.
Are you interested in going out and reading your books to other children?
Oh, I always loved to read to the kids. I always did that. That was their very favorite time at night. We'd get supper over. We'd do all kinds of things. They'd do tricks for Grandma and somersaults and everything, and we'd laugh and watch something on TV. And then it was time for the bath, and then I'd read them some library books, and I'd tell them my special story that I wrote for them every single night. So I love the idea of somebody, having a good time with their children or grandchildren before bedtime and reading these stories and that. So there is a Buckeye Book Fair in the fall, and I think I will try to get my 2 books in there. And
okay.
Then I'll try to see if I can sell some that way. So I did give a lot of my first book away to people, and the woman up the road, she's about 5 years older than I am. And she said, oh, my gosh, you had the same life I had. The Fun Times and Rhymes were all things that we had done, from Annie Pearl and Uncle John lived up the road from us. He was a beekeeper. And us kids in the neighborhood would always stop in there. And they'd always give us some candy. And we'd talk and everything. And we just had a wonderful time with them. And I had terrible measles on my birthday, and my mom had she had jury duty. So Annie Pearl came down, and here she had sewed a whole bunch of dresses for my doll. And, I felt better already. They weren't really aunt and uncle, but that's what we called them because we were just so close to them,
And that was your first book.
Yeah, that was in the Fun Times and Rhyme does have a lot of good lessons in it for people, That's the first one I worked on, and it's a lot bigger book, and it's got, one of the things I have in there is that do something good for somebody and how good it makes you feel, But it has a lot of things in there for lessons for kids. So.
All right. And Frank-a-Fish was your first with Page.
Yeah. So they did real good with Frank-a-Fish. Page Publishing did. And everybody likes it. So,
Any advice for people out there who want to write?
well, just, if you get it inside of you and you feel like doing it, sit down and do it. Just write it, But I have my poetry published in lots of books, so poetry is something you get that feeling inside of you. You want to say this, and you have to say it, and so then you start writing it, and it usually comes out pretty good, and you get said what you meant to say. So, yeah.
All right. You are Linda Allen, author of The Fabulous Frankenfish. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Attention first-time and single dads, you can potty train your daughter. Blake Miller tells us how in his book, Diapers to Wipers.
Honestly, I was never a writer. I always had writing abilities, and this book just kind of came out of the blue. Like I've told everyone, it was late one night and I couldn't sleep, and it just kind of came to me. So I jotted it down in my dream journal notebook. Completely forgot about it for, it was about 5 years, and I was doing some spring cleaning and came across it, and then put that into my phone and started reading it to some friends and family, and everyone kind of just encouraged me to try to get it published.
So what's it about?
It's an encouragement potty training book that I had wrote when my daughter was just about getting to the age to start potty training.
How old is she now?
She's 8.
Oh, okay. So not that long ago. So she was what, 3?
No, well, this whole process to get the book published, it took just over 2 years.
But
so I wrote it originally when she was about a year old.
Oh, okay. When did you start potty training her?
She was right around two, I think, when she started.
How did you end up writing a book about potty training your daughter? Did you see an issue with the way people were potty training their kids?
No, I think it more or less came from like a subconscious fear as a first-time dad, and not know, especially that it was a girl. Like I have a daughter, and it would be a little easier if I had a son, because I obviously know what it was like for me, but it's a completely different thing. So essentially I wrote it to basically make potty training a fun thing and a goal to set for both the parents and the child or children, and make it not scary, because I know it's scary for kids to use the bathroom and get out of diapers. A diaper's a comfort thing sometimes for certain kids, and it just a fun, engaging little story to get people more excited about it than fearful.
And also you're a single parent, right?
Yeah, on my side, for sure. I mean, her mom she has split custody between me and her mom. So her mom was doing, the majority of it while I was helping and having to do it at my place on my own with her. So yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking at first trying to get the hang of it, but yeah, I just wanted to write this to kind of help other parents and girl dads and single parents.
How's the story go?
I mean, it's more or less like, I would consider it like a stream of consciousness poem. It's not really a story. So it's basically like I go from it's time to start potty training and going through it and making it fun, implementing potty treats and encouraging them to do it, and to kind of letting them know that having a diaper that's stinky and wearing it around isn't fun, and the bathroom's a quiet place for you, and mom and dad are going to be there to encourage you. And when you do use the big potty is what I call it, that you might get a potty treat, and just making it fun. One of the lines in it is, "You're getting older now and quite big. Think of the toilet as your dreaming rig." And the picture that I have is me and her. She's sitting on the toilet with her eyes closed, and there's a dream bubble coming up, and me and her on the beach at our favorite spot. Just telling them it's going to go by fast. And then the last line is, "As the king or queen of the toilet seat, just use the big potty now and take a load off your feet." And then it's a picture of me and her in her bedroom, me putting a crown on her head. And so.
Were treats a big help to you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
what would you give her?
It wasn't like always candy or something. We would mix it up, something that she liked, or we would, maybe if she wanted something special for lunch, whatever. But we had like basic, give her a sucker or a piece of gum, or we'd do ice cream, something on those lines.
Does it resonate with her now?
Yeah, I mean, she loves the book. I don't know how much she truly remembers about potty training, but I think that the book brings back some memories, especially the potty treats. I know she does remember that, but she doesn't remember the whole process that we had gone through.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you can offer parents trying to potty train their kids?
I would say just try to eliminate the fear of it as much as possible, and implement it being fun and exciting, and a goal for them to accomplish. Being able to go and pick out underwear and that they like, or their favorite cartoon character, and not having to get diapers, and that stinky, smelly mess is what I say in the book.
Okay.
But yeah, I think for anything, especially with kids, is you set a goal, something to strive for, and reward them along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you doing anything to promote the book?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have it locally in a couple bookstores. I wanted to try to get it into Dolly Parton's book club and get it recognized, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, the social media aspect, where it has a chance to really expand out there and get to more parents. But the whole process is it's so foreign to me. I'm just kind of going with the flow, and whatever advice I get, I try to use. I know people that have written books, and they're trying to help me out, but it's a grind for sure.
Well, it's just really nice that you're a dad and you wrote a book about potty training a little girl. I think that's adorable.
Thank you. And my daughter thinks she was like a superstar now, so that's cool.
There you go. That's worth it right there. Are you going to keep writing?
I did write 2 other books that I haven't done anything with. I need to get this one through the whole process before I do anything with those. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The plan is to continue writing.
Okay. It's a great title too, Blake. It really is.
Thank you. I can't take credit for it. I have to shout out my friend Casey. She was the one that came up with it, and it was absolutely brilliant. So
yeah. All right. You are Blake Miller, author of Diapers to Wipers. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
After 20 years in banking, Bryan Barton retired and his creative mind took over. Now, Bryan, you say your book, Project Elysium, City of Promise, City of Refuge, literally just unfolded before you.
Yeah.
Your book is pretty involved. You've got a guy, Anthony Collins. He's got 2 doctorates in physics and electrical engineering. He's frustrated because he's, nobody wants to fund his expensive projects. And, he thinks he's got some technological advances that could turn into some powerful weapons and could be of great use to us. And then you got the CIA in here, and the military wants him, and he doesn't want to work for any of them, and he builds an underground city. I mean, just kind of came to you out of nowhere.
It had been developing over a couple of years, but when I sat down and started writing it out, then I put the details in. Okay. So, yeah.
What kind of weapons is he developing?
He's developing weapons that dematerialize molecular structure. Like, let's say in his first experiments, he would put a rock in a chamber, point his energy beams at it, and it would reduce it to dust. And eventually it came out as a weapon that he could use wide scale to dematerialize an entire building, which they did later. Their city was under attack. Their first attack became a way to shut them up, shut them down, and kill them all by let's say, a rogue faction of the government. They set off an underground nuclear bomb. They didn't know exactly where their city was or where it was exactly, so they took a nuclear bomb, set it down inside a salt mine as deep as they could get it, and set it off like an underground testing. And that caused serious damage to their city, killed a couple of their scientists, collapsed a couple of their train tunnels, and they got together as a city and determined that they were going to retaliate, and they did. They took out the building that planned this attack, and then went to the President of the United States and said, look, we're separate from you guys, and your people in the government, and they knew who they were because they had been monitoring them, and they said, if you continue this way, we're going to take out a whole lot more than the NSA building where this was planned. And we can do it, and so the Army gets together and said, what satellites are they using? And they thinking it was all, from satellite. It wasn't at all. It was all underground. They didn't even know their enemy. And they just said, do it to us again, and we will completely wipe you out. You won't have a White House. You won't have, a Pentagon.
Geez, then we'd have to start all over then.
Yes, exactly. And this energy weapon, when it's pointed out, at the surface in a certain direction, has the power to reduce whatever it touches to dust. And so no building, no pavement, no nothing. It looks like a dirt field, like it never existed. Eventually, this Anthony becomes very close friends with the President of the United States, and they meet. He sees his underground city, and he's under attack himself, and decides that he and his wife want to come and live there for protection. And it's just a glorious city. It's beautiful, and everything is underground. It's miles and miles of city and people who have chosen to go underground. A very calm and beautiful place to live.
But there's no sunlight.
Oh yes, there is. As they're giving the President of the United States a tour, he says, I'm looking up, and I'm seeing the sun. How far underground is this? He says, it's 9 miles. He says, exactly where? He says, that's classified. We have a dome that is a hologram that makes the sunlight appear. And he says, it's artificial, but it is effective, and it doesn't have the damaging rays of actual sunlight, but it gives you the appearance of day and night. And at nighttime, as you look up, you'll see the stars, and they are a replica of the exact position on the Earth that the city would be if it was sitting on the surface. And the sun moves across the sky just as normal because it replicates whatever the surface does.
I think I want to go here.
Yeah, this was my city. This is where I would enjoy living and say we're going to forget all of the scams and the intrigue and the terrible wars and everything that's going on the surface. We're separating ourselves from all that, creating our own. And they become extremely wealthy because of all the mining that they do underground. And they have trains, bullet trains that go, extremely fast, like 2,500 miles, 3,000 miles an hour. And they do it by putting an ion air splitter right in the front that covers the whole train. And so the train literally splits through the air and isn't touched by the air to slow it down. So these tunnels are electromagnetic and it doesn't touch the ground. It lifts up, goes into the center, and it takes off like a shot. And they could be anywhere in the world in less than an hour.
Well, it can't end here, does it?
No. What happens, there's two parts to this book.
Okay.
The first book shows that this underground faction of the government that's trying to kill them they're using their CIA contacts, and they're saying, find a way to find him. We either make him work for us to give us his technology for our uses, or we're going to kill him. We're not going to all stand for this. We're not going to have a competition.
Right.
And so they go to this pretty reporter in New York, and they give her a task to find this guy. She's very good at finding people. And she actually meets him. He knocks on her door because he knew she was coming. She goes out to a limousine sitting in the parking lot, and she opens the door, and there he is, sitting there in a seat. They start traveling, but they become under attack because they were tracking her. And so they make it to their safety point, but that's where she's introduced to the city. The first part, he falls in love with this girl. They get married. That's the end of the first book. The second book takes over where she takes her full part in the city as their news anchor. And then the trouble starts with the surface, and all kinds of things go on. And they become pivotal in helping the surface survive.
Okay.
The wars.
All right, Bryan Barton, so much to look forward to. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Author of Project Elysium, City of Promise, City of Refuge.
Thank you.
An ordained minister and truck driver, Phillip Compton spread the word on the road. About 15 years ago, you started posting devotionals online, and the next thing you knew, you had a following. And now you have a book entitled Building Your Relationship with Jesus, Understanding and Building Your Relationship with Christ. Now, Phillip, you tell me that people started asking questions. What kinds of questions?
For example, like all the chapters of my book, I was having dreams and for 8 days. And the first parts of my book are basically verses. And so I broke them down into categories. And so I posted them. Every day I posted the verses that came to my memory on different things, on strength and faith, love. And then people, I got an email one day and somebody asked me a question about the Holy Spirit. So I answered the question, and it was a couple pages long. and it was backed up with probably 110 verses, scriptures. And so I posted it back to them, but I posted it to where everybody could see. That's what they wanted me to do. And then I just got more questions about the armor of God. What's the difference between mercy and grace? What's the best way to embrace and engage in scripture? And I didn't plan on writing a book. I was told that at one of the churches in Chicago that I was speaking at, one of the pastors up there said, within a year, you're going to have a book. I'm like, I don't know how to write. I'm just me. I speak where I'm asked to go. And I just write little articles here and there. But almost a year to the day, my book was published. Just by people asking me questions and me answering them. I was able to put together all the pages, and it actually created a book. And it was a non-judgmental book to where it wouldn't judge people, where it can hit all genres, whether you were a believer or not. And just answering their questions that with biblical scripture to back it up. And then they would be able to decide what they would want to do. And if it would help them build closer to Christ and how to build a relationship with him.
Can you give me an example?
Yes. Like I have one friend who had a cousin, and he actually bought the book and sent it to them. They were claiming to be atheists or agnostic, which just believes in a greater power, but not particularly in a God or even Jesus Christ. And when they read the book, they ended up coming to Christ because it just answered questions. It didn't judge them. They didn't feel like they were threatened. I wasn't condemning anybody for not being a believer. It gave them better understanding of what it's like to build a relationship by reading your Bible, by understanding what it says, especially the New Testament. The Old Testament's history. I do teach advanced classes on that. But the New Testament's where the Gospels are, on building a relationship with Christ and to become a Christian and to become what we call disciples of Christ, a warrior for Christ, where you can help others. And my book explains exactly how to do that if you choose to go that way. It explains Matthew through Revelations, because a lot of people get afraid because they hear a lot of things about the book of Revelations, the judgments and curses and everything that's coming that Christians believe with end times. And they've always heard that word but didn't understand it. But I actually break it down, the whole book, where they can actually understand it and explain to them that for a believer they don't have anything to worry about. But they also have to understand, if there isn't a God, you have nothing to lose for doing this. But if there is one, you have everything to lose. But it's just where's your heart, and does it speak to you? Like the Bible really speaks to me, and I pray, and God answers me, and he did help me put this book together through the Holy Spirit.
But this book, it sounds like it's a compilation of these posts that you did online and the questions that people asked and how you answered them.
Right. But by the time I got done, I was just going through my notes, and I called up a friend of mine who's also in a ministry. And I said, if I put these notes together, I said, I'm going to call you back. I'm going to put them together in a certain order, because I think I might have something here for a bigger article. Well, I put them, and they lined up in a certain order from Matthew to Revelations. And I said, you got to look at this. So he looked it over, and he goes, you have a book. And so we put it together and sent it to a publisher, and Fulton Books, and they just had to have it.
Okay. Would you say that a majority of your questions, or a lot of the questions that you get, deal with end times and where we're going?
About 40% is probably the end times, understanding the book of Revelations. And I always explain to people before, don't even read that. The first thing you want to do is you want to understand Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the gospel. That's basically the whole message of the whole Bible. Old Testament leads up to those 4 chapters. And the New Testament pushes back onto those 4 chapters. Just building a relationship with Jesus and getting a foundation with him is what really matters, salvation, without judging, just loving on people. And but one of the things they ask is, because they always hear about the Holy Spirit, how can they believe in a third thing that they can't see? And so, well, you can't see air, but you can feel it. You can't see feelings, but you can feel them. And this is something where you have to just take it and let the Lord speak to your heart. You'll get a conviction inside of you. When you go to do something wrong, a feeling that you have inside, this is wrong.
Yeah.
That's a conviction. And when you're doing something right, you feel happy about it or feel good about it. I said the conviction is the Holy Spirit trying to tell you, look, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. That's how the Holy Spirit works, the helper that Christ said he promised to send us. And that'll help you go through the Bible. It'll help you understand the word. When you pray, the Bible opens up to you and you start seeing things you haven't seen before. And my book kind of explains everything to them and opens up the whole New Testament for them so they can understand what is the armor of God. I break it down. It's in the 6 pieces, but I went 8 steps into it. In the book of Ephesians, how they can arm themselves, and by praying and having faith and walking, and just, it's like a guide to help them, especially when they're under fire, because we go through tribulations all the time. Whether you're a believer or not, something's always coming at us in life that's difficult and brings us down and feels like we're just not even supposed to be here. Sometimes it's like, why is this happening? And what this does is encourage you to keep going and leave everything to God and let him deal with it. And you'll find out if you just give it a chance. I always tell people, give it 30 days of just a commitment and let me know what happens in your life. And 98% of them are very positive when they come back. Problems haven't gone away. Some of them have, but they start feeling good, and things have been revealed to them on how they should handle those issues.
Okay. Where do you go from here with this book? You've already got an online presence. You already have an online following.
The publisher is putting me on the social medias now. They're doing an advertisement for me.
Okay.
For Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I just talk to people and I let them know that I have a book, and every once in a while I'll mention it on my Facebook, the ministry page I have on Facebook.
Okay.
If they would like to have a copy. And I do sign a lot of copies they send to me, and I sign them and send them back.
Nice.
But I would like to actually go on the road to different churches and get a bunch of books and actually take them and hand them out. The ones I sign, usually I try to do them for free when I'm around people, so they don't have to buy them. Kind of like a gift when I can. So I try to keep one on hand with me in case I see somebody out in public.
Okay. You going to keep writing?
I am. After this, I was encouraged to start another one. I did start another book on biblical marriage, and my wife is going to co-author that with me. We're into about 6 chapters right now. I'm doing the male perspective biblically. It's not my opinion or anybody else's or psychologist's opinion. These are from scriptures taken out of the Bible.
Okay.
And she's doing the female version of it.
Okay.
From the female point of view. That way it has both views from a husband and a wife standpoint.
Okay. You are Phillip Compton, author of Building Your Relationship with Jesus, Understanding and Building Your Relationship with Christ. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
It was an honor. I appreciate you recognizing my book and giving me the time to speak about it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.